Disclaimer: there are no major spoilers in this video. This review is not sponsored. I'm not being paid to say what I say. These are my honest opinions of the game, and I don't have a defined rating system because only a Sith deals in absolutes. I knew of its existence, but I didn't play this game during early access, nor did I watch any videos, so all of my impressions are completely fresh. I consider myself a veteran gamer, as I've pretty much seen and played nearly every type of game for more than a couple decades, so these are the opinions of someone who just loves video games and especially dark fantasy settings. Tainted Grail: Fall of Avalon is a full-fledged dark fantasy open-world RPG, crafted by an ambitious and passionate team of only around 50 people that the developers state is a love letter to the open-world first-person perspective RPG genre. In this video, we're gonna see if that letter was worth writing. Welcome to Purge Evil, thank you for stopping by, let's get into it. Main menu is cool, banger first impression. The theme is badass and always gets me going. In its own way, it's almost the same as booting up Doom and the demon slaying metal music kicks in. It's unique and fits the game's theme perfectly. And I just want to emphasize how good the soundtrack is. I'll talk a bit more about the audio design, but overall the soundtrack is high quality. The ambient music can completely change from being comforting and relaxing to being downright anxiety-inducing depending on your location and surroundings. There's also a specific song that plays that gives me nostalgia of 90s RPGs. I can't quite pin which game it reminds me of, but it's a very deep-rooted memory from my childhood, and somehow they've managed to grab a piece of that for me, which is interesting to say the least. What I'm saying is they've absolutely nailed the soundtrack here, and it makes the game feel that much better to experience. The sound effects for the weapons, creatures, and such are also of high quality, and they add to every aspect of the game in all the right ways. The intro serves its purpose, the art is nice, but I'm playing on an ultra wide and it seemed low quality for some reason, like the fidelity of the image, not the art itself. Not sure what the deal here is, but I have seen this before, and maybe it just comes with the territory of having an ultra wide, because this type of thing has happened with games from much larger studios. This isn't going to affect my rating at all, it's just something peculiar. It seems it was only in the intro though, because later on the artwork is fine and actually quite beautiful and haunting. Some of it even giving me that sinking feeling in the chest. Some cutscenes are different than others, whether it be artwork and narration, pre-rendered or in-game. There's this one in particular that's pretty cool visually and audibly, and the storytelling is always there. The art design itself is very well done, and I'm just a sucker for this darker fantasy, even horror style of design. It even teeters the edge of something like Scorn in some areas. The world is brutal and bloody with no BS. There are literal brains and hearts just strewn about the starting area, so that should give you a sign of what you're in for. The atmosphere is very eerie, and you'll find morbid scenes everywhere you turn. The imagery here can be quite horrific. For example, at the start, you'll find a guy restrained and begging for death as he has contracted the Red Plague, and behind him you'll see a group of strung-up corpses. You can even read the subject notes about the experiments they're doing to these people and the mutations they're causing, and this is literally just the starting area. The creature design is grotesque, and I would have it no other way. This is fantastic. If you played Baldur's Gate or even The Witcher, you might even see some particularly familiar foes. Character creation is decent enough to where you can make someone really cool and slightly edgy, or someone extremely atrocious. The freedom of expression is there. The game has male and female rather than type A or B, and there's even a line of dialogue later on when I tried to tell someone I'm a woman, but he obviously wouldn't believe my nonsense, so you can consider this game confirmed based. From the get-go, once you start controlling your character, if you played Elder Scrolls, this will immediately feel familiar, but with some minor differences and a bit more polish. Looting is essentially the same in that you'll watch yourself undressing corpses for their gear as you ransack everything in sight, or pick fields completely clean of their flora. They definitely use the Elder Scrolls as a foundation for this game. I've played thousands of hours of Elder Scrolls, and this game essentially feels like a darker, more mature version of Skyrim and Oblivion mixed together, but with updated combat and a much better, much more personalized character stat and build system, among a plethora of other features. Your base stats essentially govern your overall damage with different attacks, your health, criticals, and so forth. Then you have the next layer of attributes like athletics, medium and heavy armor, one-handed weapons, and so on, and these level up as you use them just like the Elder Scrolls and contribute to your character's level. You can even gain some skill level ups from dialogues or interacting with things like these statues. There's not only stats to boost when you level up, but also the skill trees with quite a few options to choose from without being overly complicated. There are many different choices to make and routes to consider when putting points in skill trees that can really hone in on certain parts of your build or be balanced out between the different aspects of it. You can have 4 weapon loadouts to switch between on the fly, and if it's not a two-handed weapon, you can equip anything in the left or right hand, and there's even a setting to inverse your hands, meaning you can control the left hand with left mouse button and right hand with right mouse button. As by default, like with virtually all games, your left hand is considered secondary and uses right mouse button. This is a neat little preference setting that I really enjoy. Note that it says inverse hands for magic, but it works with one-handed weapons wielded in the other hand as well, meaning if I have a weapon in the right hand, I have to hit the right mouse button. Really cool feature. Hope I explained that correctly. You can find gear all over the place and even pray at altars by offering sacrifices for gear. With every level you gain and better weapon you find, you really feel the progression of your character, and fights that seemed difficult suddenly become much easier, while stronger foes begin to fill the gaps. Some of the spells and gears and abilities you can get really make this game fun for people like me and fans of the channel that love to make different builds and try things out. There's a ton of replayability here in that regard. The encumbrance system is quite generous, and I think it's extremely fair. There's actually 2 parts of it. You have a limit to how much you can carry in your inventory before becoming over encumbered and start walking super slow, pretty standard stuff here. But then there's also a separate encumbrance limit for what your character is actually wearing that determines multipliers for mana and stamina regen, attack speed, movement speed, and even how many times you can dash, which is also a mechanic that makes combat much better. This is something similar to Dark Souls. Mostly everything you loot is useful in some way in the form of crafting, and what's not is good simply for selling. You also have a stash in this game that you can sell stuff directly from at any merchant, which is super convenient. It has cooking and alchemy systems similar to the Elder Scrolls, where you can craft random things or things you learn from recipes, which can become quite powerful like with this game's predecessors. There's even throwables. Make sure to read the recipes in your inventory when you pick them up. Don't be like me and wonder why I still can't figure out how to make a real meal on the first night, even though I literally had recipes in the inventory. You can set up a bonfire anywhere in the world, and this is necessary for several reasons. This is a place of brief respite where you can level up, cook, and rest, as well as some other features like being able to be upgraded to fast travel, do alchemy, and identify items. I absolutely love this detail, as it seems like such a little thing, but it really does add to the overall immersion of the game. You also have special abilities, and while I haven't gotten deep into these, they do add to your playstyle and need to be recharged at the fire. You need a material called ethereal cobweb to upgrade your bonfires, and you also use it to identify items, so just make sure you have enough or else you'll end up like me, unable to identify an item. The campfire mechanic is really cool once it clicks because it really does feel like you're sitting down after a hard-fought day and you can do all these things. It works in a manner to where it naturally sets you up to fast travel back to a place to sell your loot if you're nearly over encumbered, or just to simply go to sleep, wake up, and venture forth. A nice little touch is the leftover campfire will stay behind when you're done with it, which is pretty cool. There's actually gathering mechanics in the game in which you need a pickaxe for mining, wood cutting axe for wood, a shovel to dig stuff up, and you can even fish in this game, and when I found that out, let's just say, I was quite pleasantly surprised.
A fishing rod? Oh my goodness.
There is a full gear crafting system where you can create, upgrade, enhance with relics, and reduce the weight of whatever you make or have in your inventory. I haven't gotten deep into this yet, but it is very exciting to say the least from a build perspective, and you can also literally make armor from the corpses of your enemies. Some other cool features are the spyglass, which is like binoculars, which is pretty unique for a game like this. There's also a sketchbook to draw things you see, sort of like Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2, except you manually trigger it rather than it being a passive thing, and you can draw essentially anything you come across. I cannot express how much I love this feature. You also get a magnificent steed to travel longer distances more quickly. You can even pet the horse. There's no animation to mount it, but they damn sure made multiple animations to pet it. So you can see the priorities were in the right places. As some of you may know, I do love an extensive journal in a game, and Tainted Grail delivers on this front, offering a bestiary, character and world lore, fishing records, and even tutorials. UI and menus are simple and easy to navigate, as well as memorize quickly, and as far as controls go, I'm on PC and it's highly customizable, so everything's good here. Also, a note about the UI, a lot of games kind of go overboard with it nowadays, and something so simple is refreshing. The game also comes with a photo mode that I didn't even notice till like 10 hours in, and even though it's a simple version of this feature with only a couple different options and the camera being tied to the character, it really is nice to have rather than not, and they can always add on to it in the future, kind of like how Cyberpunk did. Flat out, if you enjoy Elder Scrolls but want something a bit more modern with more meaningful combat, more mature, dark, and visceral, this is the game you've probably been waiting for. I think you'll definitely enjoy this, as it not only offers a more modern version of the foundation of its predecessors, the combat is heavy, and the game allows for you to craft and create pretty much any build you can think of. Combat is brutal and satisfying, and the enemies are no joke. It's fair, but it can be quite challenging at times. In combat, you can be killing it, make a mistake or get overzealous and run out of stamina and you're screwed. This is a big reason why I call it meaningful combat. You need to be deliberate with your actions. Speaking of stamina, that is something you definitely have to actively manage, as you might become overexerted, preventing you from doing much of anything and making you extremely vulnerable. I think stats do matter quite a bit, as you can really feel the difference in your power after leveling or attaining more gear. I'm not gonna lie, I got absolutely destroyed while learning this game. The combat was hard as hell, and even now with the little experience, there are still times I might overexert myself and just get steamrolled. This game is full of little details like how your attacks can hit the wall, which is a nice little touch of realism that I love. Enemies have weak spots, and some enemies have defenses that need to be overcome, like this drowner with a simple shell on its head, deflecting my club attacks. Yeah, I love this combat. As you can see, fighting groups is methodical. Even though I didn't have many tools at my disposal yet, I was able to manage these guys with some finesse, which felt incredibly rewarding and satisfying once I had felled the final foe. The weight of the combat feels so good. The animations, the enemy reactions, the screen movement, it's all there, and it all combines into a beautiful experience and becomes something like a performance at times. Once you start to develop your build and find your playstyle, you pretty much enter a flow state in combat, and it gives you the type of satisfaction that begs for more. The attacks are just that impactful. I do wish this game had gore or dismemberments, because the combat definitely feels powerful enough to warrant it. I understand this is a very small studio, and mechanics like that require a ton of busy work, so this is just a gamer's dream of mine. Just something I wanted to throw out there, because the combat is so well done, you feel like you're about to completely crush a skull or slice an arm off. Sometimes you'll even get execution animations. Sometimes the enemies get launched across the battlefield, and it's equally as hilarious as it is satisfying. Bring back these kinds of ragdoll physics. Make ragdolls great again. There's even mechanics in combat for you to be completely knocked to the ground. I can almost describe the combat's heaviness to feeling something like Kingdom Come, but it's not tedious or oversaturated with artificial difficulty. I was able to overcome enemies I seemingly shouldn't have been able to by devising a different strategy than I was using before. Boss fights are intense, even if it's literally just an oversized corpse eater. This is obviously near the beginning of the game, and is just a taste of what's to come from the boss fights in terms of damage dealt, damage taken, and even the pacing. What they've done here is shown they have a good understanding of how balance should work in combat, and I think they've done a great job. If you run too far away from a boss's starting point, they'll simply run back to where they were and regain all of their health. I've seen this in many games and I don't really have a problem with it. It definitely forces you to fight them in their arena, so to speak. There are sometimes some ways to cheese the AI, but things like these can possibly be patched over time. For example, enemies can get stuck on ledges, which essentially can just break the combat. But aside from this, overall, the combat system is awesome, and it's got me hooked. There is a lot to see in this game, with many places to explore, people to talk to, and quests to be quested. Quests to be quested. Exploring is rewarding, beautiful, and just genuine fun. The game doesn't rush you at all. It allows you to take in everything around you and actually immerses you if you let it. You can even unlock quests by literally just exploring new places. After the starting area is over, you're left to your own devices and can roam freely. The world is beautiful and lures you into a false sense of security, because then a second later you end up in a place where you're immediately reminded of the type of world you're living in. Some places you just straight up might have to come back to later when you're stronger. The world they've crafted here is as beautiful as it is haunting. It's majestic but twisted. They far exceeded in making the game just enjoyable to walk around in and explore and loot and even read notes and books. Honestly, it's quite phenomenal in this regard. The vistas in this game are incredible, and they have really crafted something special here. It's very easy to get distracted by something you see and completely forget what you were doing in the first place as you're knee-deep in the filth of a corpse-eater nest. When night falls, you can definitely tell the difference, because not only does it get dark as hell, the ambience completely changes, and that mysterious yet familiar ring of safety appears around your character, shielding you from the weirdness. This game's version of something like the Shadow Curse from Baldur's Gate or even the Warp from 40k. And with something like this happening, you know it must bring new and different types of enemies than would normally be hanging around, and you'll need to kill these creatures in order to get the material needed to upgrade your campfires and such. So you can technically avoid it, but not completely if you want to benefit from mechanics like identifying items or recharging your special ability. There's even hidden dungeons to find when exploring. And so far, the dungeons I've explored were thoughtfully crafted, but not overly complicated, and even have secret passageways. Some even have multiple routes where you can take different approaches that might suit your playstyle better. And yes, it's less like Oblivion and more like Skyrim, in the sense that the dungeons loop back on themselves once you've completed them, so you don't have to walk through the entire place to exit. Another cool little detail is corpses sort of decay after a period of time. If you come back to an area you previously killed some enemies, they may have turned into a pile of bones. I think resting is the main trigger for this, and I think it's a cool feature rather than just despawning the corpses. You can also have a house and even decorate it. I haven't bought it myself yet, so I can't comment too much about it, but it is just nice to have something like this in the first place rather than not at all, especially in a game such as this. The game can be so immersive that I ended up spending several full in-game days just talking to the residents, and honestly, I guess it's safe to say just kind of living in the village in a way, considering I'd go to bed at night like anyone else would and wake up and go mingle with the townfolk. Peak gameplay, my friends. There are the fast travel points, but I definitely just recommend walking around unless you need to offload some loot or something similar. In my opinion, the world in this game is absolutely the main character, and I just became completely immersed. I like from the very start of the game, you begin building your character with dialogue, and this further extends to you being able to level up skills or even obtain gear depending on who you're talking to and your choices. The writing is actually pretty sick. When I met this guy you're supposed to find when escaping the intro dungeon, I could have asked him a bunch of questions or just got straight to the point, and this was his response when I got straight to the point.
Oh, I don't believe this. Am I finally blessed with someone who understands the situation and doesn't ask stupid questions that can wait for a better moment?
So this can be the type of writing one can expect. I definitely enjoy the dialogues with the characters and think they're interesting to talk to. The game's overall writing also just makes reading notes and such enjoyable as well. Even if they talk to you, it doesn't mean they won't want to fight. This is a dark and serious world, not a cartoonish one, but there are of course civilized folk to mingle with. Your stats can affect your dialogue options, and there are even consequences and reactions to your decisions. Some of the people have plenty to say, others not so much. The characters can have a bit of nuance to them, and there's sometimes a twist with characters as well that might genuinely take you by surprise. The game itself and characters are also seemingly highly self-aware, and it makes the world that much more believable. Sometimes you'll ask a character to tell you about themselves, and they'll just straight up say no. Some won't have much to say, while others will just generally have more to talk about due to their personal demeanor or maybe their role in society. Some people will even engage in discussing morbid facts of reality. Overall, a lot of NPCs are just straight up interesting. You can even annoy an NPC to the point they'll change their mind about giving you a quest and will just straight up ignore you. Your choices can have consequences pretty much all the time, so decide thoughtfully. And while some NPCs are wearing the exact same outfits, these are obviously fillers, so all things considered, I'll accept this. Even with how dark the world is and serious most of the characters can be, you will of course find some quirky ones sprinkled about, but they never seem to undermine the general tone of the game, instead providing moments of reprieve or even causing a chuckle. There's also some especially interesting folk to meet as well. It was almost 5 in-game hours before I got to the first settlement. If you find yourself throwing bags of loot everywhere so you're not over encumbered, this is a place you need to go to sell your stuff. It's actually the first objective marker on the map, but it literally took me a full day of playing before I got here because I was just so absorbed in exploring the world. This really is your first taste of what this world's normal people are like, and there are plenty of people to talk to and learn about, all of them with their own personalities and quirks. The voice acting is passionate. And a testament to that is just how much time I actually spent talking to these people. The dialogue doesn't bore you to death or drag on for too long, and you can get quests from all types of folk. You can also get bounties here to kill bandits and bandit leaders, which I had already done, so I was able to collect multiple bounties right off the bat. On the bounty board, you might even notice the names of some familiar faces you came across on the way here, making the world feel a bit more real and believable. Also, another detail regarding the male and female thing and how this game pulls no bullshit, there's literally a conflict in the first settlement you come across literally because a female is there. The quartermaster doesn't like that she's there because she distracts his soldiers just from her mere presence, which is absolutely realistic, so another confirmed based. Now, I haven't progressed very far into it, but the main story is really interesting to me, and I don't want to spoil it at all, so I won't talk about any details. I will just say that it intrigues me, it's full of little twists and surprises, and genuinely makes me want to see what comes next. I think it fits the game quite well, and I especially like the fact that you don't feel rushed to complete it. A big reason I'm not super deep into it is really just because there's so many people to talk to and side quests out there that I just got completely absorbed in the world. The writing, at least so far, doesn't insult your intelligence or try to over-explain everything, but it also doesn't leave you completely in the dark, and you'll be able to fill in a ton of gaps and discover an innumerable amount of details and little side stories about the world and its people just from playing the game and exploring. You might even get a quest to kill someone everybody thinks is evil, but it turns out they're not that bad of a guy, so maybe you decide not to kill them and rather have a philosophical conversation about life and death. Things can lead to some rather unforeseen conclusions, and you'll even get different rewards based on the outcome. Safe to say, I do really enjoy the way everything is written. The performance is good for the most part. I think you'll be able to run this game quite well even on older hardware, even if you have to use lower settings, and as stated before, the art style, gameplay, and overall immersion more than make up for the loss of quality if you do need to use those lower settings. There are some stutters and frame drops sometimes, weird things will happen with enemies, and you'll even notice some cracks here and there, but it's overall a decently polished experience that the gameplay more than makes up for in my opinion. For some reason, once I got out of the starting area, there was a weird frame drop whenever I looked towards the sun. If I looked away from it, I was fine, and the only setting that really affected the FPS without sacrificing quality was lowering the vegetation, which put me in the mid-40s and was a bit more acceptable. Also remember, I'm operating on older hardware with the RTX 3060, pushing through a 9900K on a 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide monitor. The PC handles games pretty well, but is getting to its limit with these newer releases, but even with all of that, I can easily squeeze above 60 FPS outside, and at my set limit of 100 FPS inside if I slightly lower the quality, which actually doesn't affect the way the game looks too much, as the art style itself really does all the heavy lifting. The same thing can't be said about many other games, and this is a commendable aspect for the developers over at Questline. Also to mention, I have OBS open and recording while I'm trying to get these numbers. Vegetation does seem to be the biggest factor in performance, at least in my case. My first bug was this random texture glitch on the beach, and seemingly no matter what I did, it persisted until I left the area or changed perspectives, and it wasn't consistent whenever it came back.
And this was also the only time this ever happened.
There's also this mountain doing this weird thing, and I couldn't figure out what caused this as I tried maxing view distance and trying some things out, but it just might be an engine limitation, not sure. I could not figure this out. Also not sure if this is a bug or if it's some lore implication of what this being is, but my summons wouldn't attack him and just watched him cut me down. This is the only enemy so far I've come across where this happens, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. Minions will teleport in front of you sometimes, and it can be pretty jarring at first, but it's not really a big deal. It can, however, be quite tedious when traveling on the horse. I think it would be better if somehow they could be teleported slightly behind the player rather than in front when they get too far away. Sometimes you'll find things in the environment a little bit out of place, but this is nothing new, and honestly I see this somewhere in nearly every game, regardless of whether it's a big studio or not. There's also this weird thing where you can remove the head of a bounty, but the leftover model doesn't have a neck sculpted. Considering there's blood and gore throughout this game, this is a bit weird, and maybe it can get fixed in the future. It seems like whenever I rest at the tavern, NPCs did a weird thing where they acted like they were in combat after I woke up from resting, and some of the animations can be a little odd. Weird spirits bugged out multiple times underground, and some glitches you really can't prepare for when you have peak ragdoll physics. But with all of that, that really is it for my list of bugs so far. Not too bad if you ask me, especially with such an ambitious game being made by such a small team of people. The developers describe this game as a passion project, and it definitely shows, as you can really see the level of love that went into crafting the product we have here. You have to remember this game was developed by a team of only just over 50 members. Incredible work in my opinion. This game gave me something that I don't really get to tap into much these days. That childlike sense of wonder. It nearly brought me to tears, and the soundtrack really does a phenomenal job in assisting with these emotions. When I logged on to play this game for the second day, third day, and so on, you know that excited and almost comfortable feeling you get when you boot up one of your favorite games because you know you're in for a good time? Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Wandering around this game really gave me the same feeling I had all those years ago when I played Oblivion or Skyrim for the first time. Which is actually a crazy feat to accomplish when you consider that I wasn't just playing this for fun, I had OBS open and recording and was playing with a critical eye, constantly analyzing and writing notes to make this review. Even through all of this mental clutter, the game was still able to absolutely reel me into its world with every moment. I definitely didn't finish this game before making this review, as I really just found myself enjoying every second, and I didn't want to ruin that by rushing through it, but I also think I've experienced enough of it to give an informed opinion on whether this game deserves your attention or not, and it absolutely does. This is not an Elder Scrolls clone, this is an evolution that maintains a classic feel. Despite its minor shortcomings, everything is so well put together here, and this really is the full package. This just might be one of my favorite RPGs I've played in years. Not because it's perfect, but because it knows exactly what it wants to be, and it commits to it fully. If I was the team over at Questline, I'd be extremely proud of this product. This game is a good time, and it really is a love letter to the RPG genre. I think it'll satisfy a craving that many gamers have, and one they may have possibly had for years. I'm just gonna say it, I'm pretty much in love with this game at the moment, and I'm wondering if I should do a follow-up video once I've, quote, completed the game. There's probably some mechanics or features I've yet to uncover, and my opinions could change or be further cemented. I'm curious if that's something you'd watch. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more, and let me know down in the comments your thoughts on Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon. Written builds and guides on Patreon, channel membership for early access to videos. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, Purge Evil.